Hello, my creative friends, and welcome to another episode of The Daily Prompt. My name is Jeff Ballo. I'm building an independent film studio from the ground up, from absolutely nothing, just to prove that it can be done, taking you along for the ride, helping you learn, giving you insights, giving you perspective along the way. This ultimately is not about today. This ultimately is not about right now. This ultimately is about being able to look back and show you the entire process of building this thing. Now, I'm recording this session right after recording yesterday's session, so Thursday and Friday, one after the other. In part because I just finished that episode and realized, man, this whole idea of trying to cram these into 10 minutes is getting me a little sort of amped up. So today's episode is a Fast Friday episode. These are the Friday episodes are the episodes where we're going to look at questions related to the fast screenplay process, help you understand what I've built and why I've built it and how, whether you join me or not, understanding that is going to help you in your journey, in your adventure. I'm going to start to pull questions from the participants who are going through Fast because they go deep into the experience, and as a result, they often ask more nuanced questions, and they have a lot of they're asking questions from the inside of the process. So I think we can often go a lot further than the questions that come from the outside of the process. So we'll start getting into the questions next week, but I wanted to, on the back of what I just did for yesterday's daily prompt session, I realized that I brought up the FastDraft and I brought up the FASTtrack, and I'm not sure that I've explained either of those, or if I have, not in very much detail on this series. So I wanted to address that today. I want to talk about what the FastDraft is and what the FASTtrack is and how they're different and how, again, if you understand what I built and why I built it, whether you join me or not, it's going to help you in your adventure, in your trying to navigate this journey. So what I want to talk about is first the FastDraft. If you've been watching the series from the beginning, you know that I reverse engineered the process. I realized there are 7 distinct phases through this process. I did them in reverse order back in, I don't even know what episode it was now. I'll pop it here down below. But we reversed through that process. And then, so we basically go step by step through that whole process to go from wherever you are to literally professional career, to literally production now with the writer's room. Now, one of the challenges that I've always had along the way is that when writers first start out, particularly intermediate or advanced level writers or writers who have that idea that's burning a hole in their head, the setup phase is where we prepare and pre-align your imagination with your target so that when you get to the story development, your imagination is already pre-aligned with that target, which generates better results through the story development process, right? So for example, I'm going to go back to the horror film example. If you wanted to write a horror film, obviously, you have this idea for a horror film, and you can sit down and start creating that story. And maybe you'll create something powerful. Maybe you won't. Maybe it'll be good. Maybe it won't. But if before you sit down to start developing that story, you actually pre-align your imagination with your target. You went out and watched a whole bunch of horror films. You try to figure out who's making what at this point in time. You got a sense of what all the horror film tropes are and what elements horror film audiences would want to see. Maybe you went online and you looked at horror film fan boards and saw the complaints they were making about current films, and you read reviews to see why people are disappointed in what's happening in what's in the theaters right now. And then all of that stuff is pre-aligning your imagination. So when you then, with your existing idea, which you had before, at that point, you can sit down and go through the story development process, but your imagination has all the stuff churning in the background. So the story that you create automatically going through the process, automatically, step by step by step, automatically that story is going to be better. It's going to be more powerful because your brain is incorporating all this pre-alignment that it's done, right? So the first phase of fast screenplays is incredibly important, incredibly powerful, but because because we have to start from nothing, because we're not specifically making it about horror films, or we're not specifically making it about sci-fi films, because it applies to anything, it starts out as a relatively simple, relatively basic process. So intermediate or advanced level writers often will look at it and they'll say, and they'll think it's too basic. They'll think, oh, this is too easy. I already know this stuff. Come on, cut to the chase. Let me get to the good stuff. They don't realize that what we're actually doing is pre-aligning their imagination. So they ignore it. They skip it, and they get frustrated by it. Now, what I did to try to resolve that is introduce something called the FastDraft. Now, FAST, F-A-S-T, Fast Screenplay, is an acronym. So it's all caps. Focus, apply, strengthen, tweak. F-A-S-T, Fast Screenplay, right? Now, the FastDraft is lowercase. F-A-S-T for fast, quick, immediate, without hesitation, right? So the FastDraft is what the FastDraft is about, is taking whatever idea is currently in your head, taking that idea and getting it onto the page in screenplay format as quickly as possible. So what we do in Fast Screenplay is that first month, that setup phase, where we're pre-aligning your imagination for the industry needs. So not specific to horror film, but specific to film, specific to the industry realities, specific to how the whole business works. All this stuff that's not necessarily directly written there and explicitly explained. It's an experiential process. While we're doing that, there's now a bonus sort of overtime, we call it the bonus overtime video series, which is each day you do a new step in that FastDraft process. So what happens is, over the course of that first month, you capture your idea, you figure you're going to see what's there, you're going to see what story is automatically coming out of you. You're going to shape that story based on just instinct, and you're going to then blast out a draft. Now, the reason for doing this is to keep you engaged if you're not entirely focused on the pre-alignment stuff, but also to give you a tool that you can use forevermore. So once you're done with that sort of first month and with that FastDraft tool, you can then take that tool and literally turn an idea into a screenplay in as little as a week, 3 days, depending on how fast you type. It can be super fast to go from idea to FastDraft. Now, you're never going to send your FastDraft anywhere. You're never going to send it out for consideration. It's probably not going to be all that great. What it's designed to do is capture the ideas that are already burning a hole in your head and get them onto the page as quickly as possible. The reason is to clear up your imagination and to show you what's intuitively in there. Now, with that, and combining that with the pre-alignment of the setup phase, then when we go into the focus phase, then when we go into this story development phase, then when we go to this organic tap into your passion, your motivation, and grow the story organically out of that in the focus phase. Once we do, because we now have these tools, where we're going to go is 10 times further than where we used to go. Now, the other element of FAST is what I call the FASTtrack, and that's capital F-A-S-T. That's the system, FAST. Focus, apply, strengthen, tweak, track. So at the end of each of the phases, we have basically a step that takes all the steps of that phase and weaves them together into a single step. So once you've been through the Fast Screenplay process the first time, you're then going to, on subsequent projects, start with the FASTtrack steps. So you're basically going to go do the 7 phases in almost like a fluid motion. And what that enables you to do is to take all these ideas and these insights and stuff that you've way overthought your first time through and fly through it and make it intuitive, make it natural, make it part of your intuitive creative process. Then if you run into any stumbling blocks at any point along the way, I can't figure out how to flesh out this character, you dig back into the specific steps themselves. So in that way, Fast Screenplay, the first time you go through the process, you're learning that process. So it takes about a year because it's taking that time to learn how the mechanics of this process work. Once you have it, then you fly through it on every subsequent project. You're going to use this framework on every new project, but you're not going to go into all that much detail. You're going to fly through that process. And as you fly through that process, it becomes more and more intuitive. And this is what makes it This is what makes the process itself fast, right? This is what makes the process itself quick and intuitive. Because if you think about a master storyteller, a master screenwriter, they're not going to sit there and think about every little detail as they go. It's just there. It's intuitive. It's natural. So what fast is really all about is making the process natural and intuitive and fluid for you. So how do we do that? Well, we have to go through those mechanics the first time. So we give you that extra tool while we're pre-aligning your imagination, give you that FastDraft tool so you can quickly turn any idea into a FastDraft screenplay like that really quickly. Forevermore, right? Then we go through each of those phases. We learn all the mechanics of the phases, and then we go through it with the FASTtrack. And the FASTtrack makes it faster and better and stronger and more intuitive with every project you write. And in that way, every single project you write makes you a better writer, helps you improve, helps you iterate. So if your first time through the system, you don't end up with exactly the results you want as you go through the process, as you develop that, as you improve and get faster and more intuitive each time through, that increases your level. So it's like the first time through, if you're a complete novice, the first time through, you start with nothing. By the end of it, you're an intermediate writer. If you're an intermediate writer, or after you've done it the first time, when you go through it again, you're an advanced level writer and eventually a pro level writer. And in that way, every time you go through the process, you get better and faster. And that's what fast is really all about. So that's what I want to talk about today. Next week, we'll get into some of the questions and some of the specifics around it. If you have any questions about it, pop them in the comments below. Take action today. Whatever you do, whether you join me in fast or whether you just do your own thing, take action, keep moving forward, use this as your daily prompt. We'll see you tomorrow.